Welcome back, everybody. And I think I'd like to take a few minutes to take a break from wrenching and wheeling and moving rocks and cover something near and dear to my heart, which is tools. I love tools. I have so many tools: hand tools, power tools. I call myself a lazy tool owner because I own 5 routers because I don't want to move the bits. So I have a router that does nothing but cut holes. It just cuts circular holes. That's what that router does. And then I have a router that I use for roundovers. That's all it gets used for. I have multiple rotary tools because I don't want to move the bits over. I have one that has a half-inch sanding drum in it forever. That's all it does. And as you accrue tools, lots and lots of tools over years and years, you get the guys that get relegated and they get used very rarely. You know, things like snap ring pliers. But when you need a snap ring plier, boy, do you know that you need it. Or things like my fast tool AccuScribe, which is basically just a compass that will allow you to draw gigantic holes very accurately. And it just uses a normal pencil. It's got a sharpener built into it. I might bring this out once every couple months, but it's one of those things. When you need it, boy, do you know you need it. At the other end of the spectrum are things that get used all the time. This is a Hakko CHP 170 flush cutter. I use this probably daily. I was like, okay, sure, you could run out and get yourself a Nipex, but the expenditure. Like, this is a $6 flush cutter. I used to use the Crescent ones, which are available, like you can go down to Home Depot and get one, and I've snapped the jaws off of probably half a dozen of them. So I bought a 2-pack of these Hakkos, and rock solid. So you can find these on Amazon. You can find these most places. Hakko CHP 170. Fantastic flush cutters. And the flush cut plier, to me, is something that is a hobby essential. Also, a hobby essential is not skimping on hex tools, right? I have a set of handled MIPs, and I have a set of driver inserts, also MIPs. It took me 30 years of this hobby to finally break down and buy proper hex bits. I was just using whatever. Give me a package of Energy, give me some cheap bit inserts from McMaster. Like, these are still Energy nut drivers, the inserts. And for nut drivers themselves, I use the cheap Weehas from McMaster. These, well, when I bought these, I've had these many, many, many years. They were probably $3 a piece, which means they're probably like $6 or $7 a piece now. Who knows? But nut drivers, I've found it doesn't really matter. You can use whatever. When it comes to a hex tool, yeah, it's going to hurt when you drop that 40 some dollars on this and 30 some dollars on those. You know, you're talking over $10 a wrench. But they are that good. You stripping out fasteners only comes as a result of certain manufacturers that shall not be named using substandard hardware. Like, there's a lot of kits and RTRs that will come with non-graded hardware in them. Using these will certainly help. They will help save your sanity. And in those instances when they don't, I have another of my very favorite tools, the Engineer Negisaurus screw pliers. These are not just regular pliers. They've got a whole business going on here at the end. Right? What they are designed to do, you'll notice how they have a little, they're open even when they're closed. They are designed to grab screws. And when they grab them, they grab them. So basically, if you have a stripped out fastener, before you resort to cutting a slot in the head with a Dremel or trying to drill it out, if there's enough room for the Negisaurus to grab that fastener, you'll get it out. Like, I've had grub screws strip out in pinion gears and gotten them out with this. These these are irreplaceable. There's nothing really else like them. They are a tool that, yes, doesn't get used that often, but they are a tool that I would not exchange for anything, because when they are needed, they are invaluable. If you are a person who, like myself, starts to get into the building and fabrication of things, then there are certain things that you should have, particularly when working on crawlers. Uh, our fasteners are pretty much limited to 2 millimeter, 2.5 millimeter, and 3 millimeter. But there is 4 millimeter for suspension links. So I recommend to everyone picking up taps in 2, 2.5, 3, and 4. This is my particular favorite type of tap. These are spirals. They will say in the item description, not for hand tool use, meaning don't chuck it up in a drill. These are supposed to, like, this is for like putting in a lathe or what have you. I only use these in a drill, and I have never snapped one. What they do is they will eventually wear out. They will go dull on you and they will wear out. Now, in the smaller sizes, like 2.5 and 2, you are generally limited to the standard 3 flute tap, and that's okay, because odds are you're not going to be putting these into steel. They're just going to be used on aluminums and plastics. So I've used both of these a number of times, and they they still look brand new. They still work like they're brand new. What is the camera doing? Uh, what? Absolutely no problems at all. And what you have to pair with those is, like, safer. We'll just start, because the bits get really small really fast. If you're going to tap a 3 millimeter hole, you need a 2.5 millimeter bit, and that's a 2.5 millimeter jobber bit, which you can buy in a 12 pack for about $25. I know most people aren't going to do that. They're going to buy them one at a time, which is okay. So what I do is, instead of buying a bag of 2.5 millimeter, which is actually slightly undersized because they know it's going to be for tapping. So this is 2.46 millimeters. This is 2.5 millimeters. This is a number 39 numbered drill bit. So, like, when I drill holes for tapping to 4 millimeter, I use this bit. You need to use a 3.3 millimeter drill bit to tap a 4 millimeter hole. And the problem is, 3.3 millimeter drill bits don't come in a lot of flavors, and they are generally more expensive than they should be. It's like we're so dead set on not embracing metric that this is not a 3.3 millimeter drill bit. This is a number 30 drill bit, which is 3.24 millimeters, so 6/100ths of a millimeter smaller. And you can get these a 10 pack for $8. So they're 80 cents a piece. And if you're going to build yourself a set of links, it's not a bad idea to have that. If you're drilling a pass-through hole for 4 millimeter, which doesn't come up in crawlers as often as it comes up in other vehicles. When working with Traxxas stuff, there's a lot of 4 millimeter. So I've used this 4 millimeter a lot. Only it's not a 4 millimeter, it's a number 21. Because numeric drill bits are packed real tight in the drift. Like they, I want to say they're 200ths. The steps are 200ths. So there'd be 50 to, no, it's way tighter than that. It's way tighter than that. Am I too lazy to get the bin out? No, let's just get the bin out. So when you have a full standard bit set with all the numerics, you have a number 60 through a number 1, which takes you from 040 to 228. So in .188 inches, there's 60 of them. Yeah, so 110, 111, 113, 116. Yeah, they're pretty tightly spaced. So I make a conscious effort not to buy specifically metric drill bits. A a 1/8 drill bit, which you can buy anywhere on the cheap, which will not show up in here because that would be. See, here's a full bit set that no one needs, but is a thing that of course I have. This is lettered. This is fractional, and then here we have numbered. A 1/8 drill bit is 3.12 millimeters. So if you need to drill a 3 millimeter hole, you just go down to any hardware store and buy 1/8 drill bits. They're cheap. You can get packs of them. And I drill a lot of 3 millimeter, quote, 3 millimeter, which are actually 1/8 inch holes. Because there's nothing in life like a sharp drill bit. Like when you first pull that bit out of the case and drill those first couple holes, it's amazing. The back of the hole doesn't blow out. So I stock up on, where are they? 39s, which are 0.99, which is apparently 2.5 millimeters. 39. Yep. 2.50, dead on. So there is a, essentially, there is a numeric or lettered equivalent to any drill bit you could possibly need. So those are my go-tos, as metric bits are more expensive, harder to come by, unless you're going to McMaster and dropping a fair amount of cash. Wow, that clip is really bent. A fair amount of cash on basically tubes of drill bits where you got to buy 10 or 12 at a time. But I understand that for most folks, wrenching on crawlers and first getting into fabrication, like, you're not going to need much more than a handful of bits, a 30, some eighth. The taps, you do have to buy metric, and a tap like this is a proper tap. This isn't like an Amazon tap. This is from McMaster. So a tap like this is probably going to be about $8. But, I mean, if you've ever had that hole in a part or a piece of your chassis or something where when you start the screw in it and it doesn't feel quite right, you chuck this guy up in a drill. I mean, it really makes the assembly of things go more smoothly, inarguably. So spending the money on tools, for some people, I understand, is a difficult proposition. But I mean, I love tools. I love tools. That's a fraction of what I have. I mean, here's just the accumulation of stuff that I consider RC specific. Oh, and how could I forget? Perhaps my favorite RC tool of all time. This is a Stahlwheel Motor 10. Chrome alloy steel from Germany. I found this on McMaster many years ago. And it is 5.5 millimeter on this end and 7 millimeter on that end. Which, if anything has seemed more RC specific to me, I don't know what is. Like, I use this wrench every single day. It's so good. Like, this might, of all the things here, even more than the Negosaurus, this might be my favorite RC tool ever. How could I forget my favorite? And remember when I mentioned that I have an obsession with tools? I got to free up a lot of space up here because I have another shed, my garden shed. But, I mean, I feel like I have an obsession with tools. Like, this is just the tools that live in here. This isn't, like, you'll notice there's no sockets in here. This is a fraction of the tools. This is just the tools at hand. I love tools. So, anyone can eventually grow into a tool obsessive, but where I certainly recommend people start, if they haven't already, or if they're still struggling away with cheap hex drivers, get a good set. Like, I know there's a lot of companies out there that make great ones. Uh, I have been nothing but pleased with the performance of the MIPs. I mean, 1.52 and 2.5 millimeter will do 90% of what we need. And realistically, you need a 5.5 and a 7 millimeter nut driver. I also have 4.5 millimeter and 5 millimeter for the odd stuff like ball studs, which we don't really encounter much anymore. I still have a collection, I still have some old Energy wrenches. There's a 16th for when I get that odd pinion gear that has a dumb 16th inch set screw in it because, again, we refuse to embrace metric. And I am a living personification of the Victor Easy Read ruler, where I am standard on one side and metric on the other because my brain just goes back and forth between the two. It's as close as I'll ever become to being bilingual. I can work both ways. And the Victor $6 rule, unfortunately, has the blue steel 18-inch easy read. Unfortunately, has cork on the back, and I could use it without the cork in the back because when I scribed on the side, the scribe wants to go under it. Anyway, this is a fantastic ruler because it's another tool that I genuinely recommend to people, and I've only had it a couple months. Because if you're ever wondering how long that fastener is, you just put it up against the end and you roll it down, and that's a 22 millimeter. I don't know who I helped, if I helped anyone. Uh, go buy some tools. Tools are awesome, and if you're gonna be like me and try to strip out your chassis, uh, this is the guy to go. The Bosch GSR 12 volt, which I don't recommend to anyone. Like, I didn't buy this specifically to wrench on RC cars. I just love the compact Bosch size. You'd be much better served, honestly and genuinely, with something like how Ryobi used to do this Tech 4 series. I know they don't. I know they don't make these anymore. This thing uses a tiny little battery. I mean, you can drive 3-inch deck screws with that, so you really needed to develop some finesse to not just blow things apart. And the Negosaurus has come out on multiple occasions because, like, I forgot that this thing is on put it in and not take it out, and just blasted something in and seized it up and stripped the head out all at once. So save yourself. Look for some little 4 volt, 6 volt, 9 volt driver that, and I will say, whatever you go with, removable batteries. Because this GR12 is not that old, probably about 18 months. It replaced the older version of this that I had for a decade until eventually it had a lot of slip in the chuck up here. Because, I like built decks with it, installed windows and doors. Because you can get this thing into some tiny, tight little spaces. And I tell myself to use that 4 volt, but it's too late for me now. I can't be saved. I've created the world in which I live. And I'm addicted to being able to blow fasteners apart and strip out chassis, which is why I have a collection of drill bits and taps, so I can fix the damage that I do to my own stuff. And there you have it. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I'd end up. There it is. If you have any other questions about little tools for working on toy cars, leave a comment below. Like it if you learned anything. Subscribe if you haven't. Watched some other videos. I'll offer whatever tech tips anyone is looking for, because I feel like I've blindly stumbled my way into knowing how to do some stuff, at least a little. So thanks for watching, everybody, and stay tuned for other content that has more movement and less me just, showing off my tools.